Good morning, Year 6. Mrs. Green here with your Monday morning writing lesson. Right, today we are moving on to a genre that you probably haven't done for quite a while, but one that I really enjoy. Right, but before we get to that, it's time for the Monday morning writing shout out. So here we go. Today I've chosen Olivia from 6P for her action scene using technique, description, action, dialogue, action. I particularly like some of her chosen vocabulary, such as belted and hyphenated word spine-chilling. So whilst Olivia, you have been awarded 2 class dojos for aspiration. Right then, and on to our starter task. A starter task that will link very much to this next genre that we're going to be covering. Right, your task is to look very carefully at the 3 sentences within each group and decide which sentence is a fact or opinion, and then work out, is there an odd one out? So pause the video now and write down the sentence from each group of sentences which is the odd one out. Now let's check our answers. So for the first one, C, Ian Ryder's car was hit by a lorry at Old Street Roundabout. That was a fact. Second one, A, Ian Ryder was buried at Brompton Cemetery on the Fulham Road. That is also a fact. And third one, A, Herod Sal was born in Lebanon. That was also a fact. They were the odd ones out because the rest of them were opinions. But what is a fact? Well, a fact is a statement that can be proven true or false. And an opinion is an expression of a person's feelings that cannot be proven. Opinions can, however, be based on facts and sometimes deliberately meant to be misleading. Right, this week, Year 6, you are going to become journalists for the BBC, and you are going to write a newspaper article about.
And finally, an amazing gift made to the British nation. The Stormbreaker has been called the most sophisticated personal computer of the 21st century. And 1 month ago, its multi-billionaire inventor, Darius Sale, made his astonishing announcement.
That's right, dude. I'm going to give a Stormbreaker to every school.
Good evening. Today's top story: Sale surprises schools with storm. Find out more about this exciting story and how to find features of a newspaper report. Right, so all of this week we are going to be learning about the structure, the layout and language features used in a newspaper report. Now I'm sure we all know the bigger picture here. Newspaper reports help inform us about key stories that are happening around the world. But I think it is worth pointing out here to remember that newspaper reports are not always completely factual. They will sometimes contain opinions. Our key vocabulary today will help you with our learning objective. It will help you identify features of a newspaper report. Some words you might not know, but don't worry, you will find out about them later.
This is a newspaper. Its job is to tell us about the things that are happening in the world. Newspapers always have big writing on the front page. What's the headline today? Lion eats lion timer! Oh, sorry about that. The headlines are there to grab our attention, so they're quite loud. Let's move on to the more colourful bits. What's this? Lion escapes after 10 years in a circus. The caption on this picture helps us work out what the picture's showing us and tells us a bit more about the story. Most of the pages are taken up with smaller words, and they tell us the full story. Newspapers have lots of tricks to tell stories in an interesting way, like facts and opinions, and the super useful 5 W's: who, what, why, where, and when. So, did they find the lion? Now I think it's still...
First of all, let's check out an example of a newspaper report. Well, it looks like one. It has columns, a picture, a caption, and a headline. But let's read to find out more. Harrowing hit. Yesterday, early in the morning, a terrible crash took place at Old Street Roundabout. The young man, Mr. Ian Ryder, 35, had passed away due to the horrendous car crash. This terrible crash took place in the early hours in the morning at the roundabout. This crash involved a lorry which collided into Mr. Ryder's car. He was killed instantly after turning a corner. According to the police, Mr. Ryder did not wear a seatbelt, which was one of the main reasons for his death. Mr. Michael Johnson, 38, heard an ear-piercing crash when he was walking across the streets. He pointed out, "I was walking on the streets and suddenly I hear a loud bang and I see glass shattered everywhere. It was a very messy scene. I heard people screaming for help and I was just puzzled." Mr. Ryder lived in Fulham and had worked for the Royal and General Bank. Mr. Ryder travelled a lot but never really spoke to anybody. He was very private. His housemaid, Jack, said, "I knew Mr. Ryder very well and he isolated himself." Mr. Ryder was a very strict person who focused on work and he was very straightforward. He was a very serious man but was a very wealthy gentleman. Mr. Ryder was a man who lived alone in his house and never let loose, his family members think. Mr. Ryder was the only relative his nephew Alex knew, due to his parents passing away. Mr. Ryder raised Alex up until now. This death triggered Alex, and this is what he has to say about the crash. "I think this whole case is a total lie. I know my uncle, and he had always worn a seatbelt, even if we had to go round the corner. Even if we had to go round to the corner shop." The funeral will be held at Brompton Cemetery on Saturday. This death was very devastating, and we hope the best for the late Mr. Ryder's family. Okay, so let's have a look at some other features. So we've already talked about the headline, which is interesting because this headline has used alliteration. Okay, now as you can see, the first paragraph in a newspaper report is referred to as a lead, or some people call it an orientation. And this is where you give people the general gist of what is happening. I always say in class, you don't give all the juicy information, but you try to answer as many of the 4 W's as possible. So what, where, when, and who. Then after that, let's have a look. You can see throughout this there are lots of quotes made from people who have been interviewed. In a newspaper report, this is referred to as direct speech. So you can see that Jack Ryder was interviewed, that Alex was interviewed, and that a bystander, Michael Johnson, was also interviewed. We can tell it's direct speech because the speech is in between inverted commas. Of course, we have a picture and we have a caption. And the final part of a newspaper report is called a reorientation, and this kind of takes things back to what is currently happening now. Are there any other features missing? Well, as you can see, I've underlined some verbs: took, involved, and killed. Okay, well, a newspaper report is written in the past tense, so it will contain lots of past tense verbs, as it is reporting on something that is already happened, so it is effectively a recount. Right, I've also highlighted, circled some names: Mr. Ryder, Michael Johnson. Okay, well, that is showing us that newspaper reports are written in the third person. Not in the first person, you won't see I and me, and not in the second person. But that can't be all the features, surely. Well, let's take a look at a WAGOLL, what a good one looks like. Before we start, I'm going to read through the story. So if you can't see, listen very carefully. Storm to hit secondary schools. Yesterday, top businessman, software developer and philanthropist announced his intention to give tens of thousands of his new, revolutionary new computer, as well as commenced proceedings for the grand activation ceremony at the Science Museum. On the 25th of February, Herod Sale, who is CEO and owner of Sale Enterprises, broadcasted his desire to give each secondary school a Stormbreaker computer, supposedly as a gesture of thanks to the country for taking him in. Sale was born into a large family with 13 siblings in the slums of Beirut, had his luck changed at the age of 13. It is reported that one day he saved 2 rich tourists by pushing them out of the way of a falling grand piano. According to sources, Jane and Gregory White said that when they inquired into Sale's position and learned of his life in poverty, their hearts broke for him. Soon after that, they adopted him, and Sale moved to England to be educated at private school Eton, and then later Cambridge, where he met Prime Minister Tony Blair. Since Sale's schooling, he has built a large, successful empire and is well known for his contribution to Microsoft software. When interviewed, Sale said, "I am in a good position to give something back and express my true feelings for this country." It is believed that the grand unveiling will be April the 1st at 10 a.m. sharp. I'm honoured to have been asked by my old school pal and pleased to reward Sale with his British citizenship, Tony Blair stated outside number 10. A spokesman for Sale Enterprises has said the computers are currently being assembled at a plant in Port Talon and that everything is on track. Well, let's take a look. We can see there is a headline, which should be short and snappy to grab the reader's attention, a picture and a caption to give the reader more information and help them visualise. The lead should be a generic summary of the story, answering the 4 W's, what, who, when, where, not giving away too much information though. And after that comes the main body paragraph, which contains more detail and answers the 5 W's and H, how, in chronological order. Within the main body, there will also be speech, not just direct speech, which gives the viewpoints of people involved, but reported speech, which is when the speech that others have said is reported in non-literal terms. Speech is what contains the opinions of the report. Newspaper reports tend to have a formal, neutral tone, particularly if a broadsheet concentrating on more important political and international issues. So throughout the report, you should see many examples of formal language and formal phrases, such as according to sources, or it is reported that, or it is believed that. As well as that, a newspaper report should contain embedded clauses as a way of writing complex sentences and dropping more detail into the report. Right, on to your task today. So have a look at the WAGOLL, which is going to be on the next slide. Think back to everything that I've talked about today and identify the features. 1 chili. Look carefully at what has been colour-coded and underlined. Can you identify what feature it is? 2 chili. Can you do 1 chili, but then write about the purpose of each feature? For example, what is the purpose of the headline? What is the purpose of direct speech? And 3 chili. Can you do 1 and 2 chili, but could you also look very carefully at the WAGOLL and see if you can identify any other features that make the writing effective that I haven't talked about today? Okay, so I'm going to read another WAGOLL for you to complete your chili challenges with. So here we go. Set sail to schools. Late last night, business magnate and philanthropist publicised his aim of gifting tens of thousands of his new innovative computer alongside a televised activation ceremony. On the 25th of February, Harold Sale, who is owner of Sale Enterprises, a radio channel and racehorses, announced his plan to deliver, completely free of charge, every secondary school nationwide a Stormbreaker computer, evidently as a gesture of thanks to the country. Sale, who was born into complete poverty in the backstreets of Beirut with 9 brothers and 4 sisters, should have ended up unemployed, unable to read and write like the rest of his family. However, due to sheer chance, Sale's luck changed when he was only 7. It is reported that he saved an extremely wealthy American couple from being killed by a piano falling from a 14th-story window. According to sources, Beth and John Lowe were of course eternally grateful and said that they couldn't believe Sale's poor existence. As a result, out of gratitude, they had him educated in England, where he made astonishing progress, going on to attend Cambridge, where he met the Prime Minister. Since Sale's schooling, he has built a large, successful empire and is well known for his contribution to Microsoft software. When interviewed, Sale said, "I'm in a good position to give something back and express my true feelings for this country." It is believed that the grand unveiling will be April the 1st at 10 a.m. sharp at the Science Museum. This is an incredibly kind deed that Sale is doing, certainly requiring he receive British citizenship, Tony Blair stated outside number 10. A spokesman for Sale Enterprises has said that the computers are currently being assembled at a plant in Port Talon and that everything is on track. Okay guys, so pause the video now and have a go at your chilies. Okay, well done. Of course, as always, please email your work in to year6@franchprimary.works.sc.uk, and I will see you again tomorrow for the next part of Newspaper Reports.